welcome back inside the Parfumerie for podcast number 915. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
And you know what we do on race weekends.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
What we do. We talk about the races. And we're going to talk about a race. We're going to talk about the Qatar Grand Prix. We're going to review that. But before doing that, I have to introduce my guest tonight.
Wrecked from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the International.
Oh, I have breaking news, Paul. This just in. It's Paul Charsley's birthday today.
Oh.
How about that?
Birthdays used to be a good thing to happen.
Well,
it's always a good thing to have a birthday. But,
well, it beats the
you know what I'm
alternative,
saying.
right?
Yeah.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just hope I don't get a penalty for anything today. That's all.
No, right.
My deepest birthday wish is not to get a stop and go.
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering if you got anything cool like a Scalextrics set, or did you just get a carton of smokes and a better year at the Charsley house?
Hey, smoke up, Johnny!
You know?
More likely.
Yeah.
I was hoping Ian would give me a call, when I spoke to him today and just say, hey, you know what, Paul, just GT3 Daytona, how about it?
Yeah, give it a go.
No, didn't even mention it. Not a word.
And you and Ian are like this.
I know.
Make it happen, Ian.
Well, I think sometimes my old exploits in rental cars may be hurting my chances of being in one of those cars, honestly. But I promise I don't drive that way on the track.
Right. In his mind, he's thinking,
That's strange. I wonder what's causing all the accidents.
he thinks he may have a Maldonado on it.
Yes. Yeah. He's seen some antics, let's just put it that way.
He has. I'm sure he has. But some of it's unmentionable, of course.
Of course.
So, well, happy birthday, Paul.
Thank you.
Yes. And
good.
Here's the good news. You're never going to catch up with me.
Yeah, that is. You being much older than me is always a good little joke from me. So I'll always keep going.
Yeah, much older. Yes, exactly. Well, hey, we had a Grand Prix this weekend, the Qatar Grand Prix. We're going to review that. I gotta tell you, this weekend, Paul, you know what we had? It's what your aunt on your dad's side, thrice removed, would say was
controversy.
Yes, would say that.
Yes.
Speaking to my dad, he was just apoplectic today about the Grand Prix, quite honestly. So, yeah, he's very critical of these folks.
Well, as he should be.
As he should be after that.
That's why I called it the Qatar Grand Prix ruined. But I did a dad joke. I did RUI-end, right? You see what I did there?
I do.
I know, it's a dad joke.
Kids love it.
Yeah,
Kids love the dad jokes,
kids
especially
love it.
Formula One-centric ones.
I know. Some of you are like, what did you actually do? What?
Yeah.
I know. It's crazy. Well, I got out ahead of myself and thought it'd be funny, and then, Grace called me. It was a dad joke, and I agree. Grace always keeping me frosty, that Grace.
Yep, always.
Well, let's talk about the race, shall we? Let's set the table, do a little formation lap here. Okay, we had the shortened DRS zone, number one. The track has those medium speed corners, very flowing sections, but none of that really played into the exciting racing. No, that was all down to durable hard compounds that lasted the race, allowed them to push, safety cars or lack thereof, and attrition, which made for an exciting race. So we had all of that in play. I would say artificially manufactured or not, we had all that in play. It's an interesting track, though, in aggregate when you think about it. And one I do think it's pretty challenging, I think it's challenging for the drivers. I think the track layout does lend itself some good racing. And I kind of get the impression it's a little tricky to get the setup right, downforce versus not, medium speed, flowing sections, the straights. I think it might be kind of challenging to get the setup right. But boy, Paul, interesting, Red Bull nailed it between the sprint race and the Grand Prix, didn't they? I mean, seemingly somebody reached in there and gave that bib adjustment a few turns on that between the sprint and the race, because they came alive during the race.
At least one of them did, yeah.
Yes, the other was sort of
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
not good enough, yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
He must have got the dodgy springs or something.
Yeah,
Oh,
somebody forgot where
Perez.
the bib adjustment in the cockpit was for him. What happened there? But yeah,
Mm,
they turned that thing around.
yeah.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? The mirror, Alex Albon's mirror, or affectionately referred to as Albon's mirror. Lando got a penalty for not lifting during yellow flags while the mirror was on track. He got a 10-second stop and go, which was the harshest penalty they could give. But on the flip side of that coin, the race stewards couldn't be bothered to call a safety car out to remove it. So presumably, you get a penalty because it was unsafe for him not to lift in yellows.
Yeah.
But it wasn't unsafe enough to have a safety car come out and remove it. And I got to think, Paul, you've been around a lot of racetracks. You've seen a lot of debris on racetracks. These cars are going, 180, 200 miles an hour
Yeah.
on that straight. And I know that mirror is there, but if somebody hits that mirror, which Bottas did, it
Right.
ceases to be a mirror and it becomes shards of a death machine in the air,
Yep.
at 200
Yep.
miles an hour. And I get the fact that a virtual safety car wouldn't have necessarily worked because the cars were all relatively evenly spaced. So that leaves you with a safety car, and it may have seemed like overkill, but in hindsight, what seemed like overkill actually did do some damage in the race. You had Carlos and Lewis both suffering punctures. No telling
Yep.
what happened to Bottas's underbody.
Mm-hmm.
It has a bad deal.
Yeah, there's so many things wrong with what happened. Obviously, since the Massa incident, if everyone remembers the Massa
yeah.
in the spring, Formula One turned a page on being more sensitive to debris on the track, what damage that can be done if a tire rolls over it and flicks it into a driver and behind them, et cetera, et cetera. So since then, they've been more sensitive. Sometimes you think oversensitive. There's a crisp packet floating around and there's a yellow. Didn't make any sense to me why it was inevitable that someone was going to hit this mirror, and it's inevitable that when that mirror gets hit, it turns into shrapnel, and then therefore they're going to have to throw a caution no matter what. It was a debris flag. I mean, if you want to go back to the Norris thing, it should be a debris flag, which doesn't signify you to slow down. In my book, it signifies you need to be aware there's debris on the track. But that being said, they knew exactly what was there, and they should have instantly taken care of it. Why can't you throw a VSC out there if you don't want a safety car? Find some way of making it safe. Throw a bloody drone out there to pick up the pieces of the piece of, the mirror that was actually together at that point. A lot bigger problem once someone hits it, right?
Yeah.
A lot easier to get rid of it. They've got to figure a way of getting this debris off the road safely. We don't want to endanger any marshals or anything like that.
No.
Or, if the worst comes to worst, then you have to throw the safety car, gather everyone up. We know no one likes that. It's a long process. Pit stops, getting people gathered up, having the safety car. You can't even get to the mirror till everyone's gathered up, and there's no actually guarantee that everyone's going to be gathered up anyway with how everyone's diving in and out of the pits.
Right. Yeah, good point.
So,
everybody would have dove in, or not everybody, but a few of would.
Yeah.
And that may have opened up some track space.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's to do with, the change in race control personnel. We know the new guy came on, and then all of a sudden they fired the F2 and race controller as well. So that person then had to cover two different series. Not acceptable.
He was doing three. He did the Formula, just flew out of my head. The female series.
Yeah.
And he did it. The Formula Academy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Formula Academy.
He did Formula Academy F2 and F1, and that's a tall order.
And that's unacceptable for the pinnacle of racing.
Agreed.
Right.
Totally.
I mean, it should be a full-time job, covering, being prepared, post-race, post-session, for one person to deal with Formula One. But if you've got this person jumping out, jumping in, jumping out, as I said, it's unacceptable. Formula One shouldn't put themselves in that place. I'm not sure what they're doing. It's a shambles.
It's shambolic.
Yeah, it's shambolic.
Yes.
Right. All these people that are shuffling around, there's got to be a reason why the turmoil, why the turnover, why people are quitting, why people are being fired. There's
Where's
something
the vote of
broken in
no
that system.
confidence, Paul? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I mean, at some
Hmm.
point, the FIA is bleeding executives like crazy, and he's firing people over text and stuff. I saw a video after the race. He was coming up, and I don't know, something about him. It's a mannerism or whatever. But every time I see him, he's always got his hand on somebody, pushing them in a direction that they're already going. Like he's always trying to direct
Yeah.
traffic, and
Yeah.
and show, be a leader, and goes out and puts his hand on somebody and ushers them into the position like he's orchestrating this thing. And it's annoying as hell. And
Yeah.
I saw Oscar, literally, he was grabbing Oscar to shove him towards his team and to celebrate. And Oscar just shoved him back. He was like,
Yeah.
Oscar wasn't putting up. He wasn't having none of it.
Yeah, this guy needs to go.
Guy
I
needs to
mean,
go.
maybe he's the reason why why people are jumping out of
suspect.
the boat. But
I
even so, the choices made in race control isn't just under one person.
Yeah.
It's a basic decision that all the great race directors that we deal with at IMSA, at WEC, at SRO would instantly take care of, and I don't know why it wasn't taken care of here, and obviously caused, damage to other people. It could have been a lot worse, but it also damaged the race. And then for them to give Norris that penalty, they should be the ones in the penalty box.
Absolutely.
As I said, it should have been a debris flag, which wouldn't signify having to slow down. And then, they're just chasing their tails, and then there's always some leniency and some adjustments can be made in penalties, but to throw the book at Norris for that,
Yeah.
it was also as wrong as the decision not to actually take care of the debris in the first place.
Yeah, I kind of, I understand the stewards, and I've always been a proponent. You don't penalize the outcome, you penalize the action, right? And so, in that sense, not slowing under yellows should be a harsh penalty. And I understand that's what they're doing, but then contextually, when you look at it, it's like, well, they shouldn't even had to penalize him because a safety car should have been brought out.
Right.
And you're damned if you, damned if you don't. If you bring the safety car out, it impacts, takes a long time to cycle the cars. You would have had fans mad. Oh, it's just a damn mirror and all that kind of thing. And I get all that, but it's that consistency that we've always been arguing. The safety car is going to benefit some and penalize others. It always does, right?
Yeah, and they can't make these decisions based on how's it going to affect someone's race.
Exactly.
For the most part, from what I know, race control, they try to separate themselves from the race of what's going on.
Yeah.
What the scenarios are for points and
Right.
people to try and just make the right decisions for the right reasons.
Yeah, and I'm not teeing off on Rui in the new race. I mean, it's a tall order for
It is.
him, and he shouldn't have been put in that position anyway.
No. I'm guessing that the love affair that they had after their first meeting is no longer between he and the drivers.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because I think this track is a good design. And using the gravel strips now, I think they're showing themselves to work.
I agree.
I mean, yeah, it'd be great not to have gravel thrown on the track. Maybe there's something else, and we talked about it a long time ago. Have a strip of something that's a detriment to the speed of the car and control of the car. Maybe there's something different than gravel that could be a bit more slippery that would make it difficult and not throw so much stuff up there. But overall, that's an enhancement that's allowing us to not have to worry about as many track limits penalties, which is always a good thing. But you throw all this they were throwing penalties out left, right, and center. That is not the way we want to go racing. You need to start being able to supply a race with rules and supply a track that eliminates the need for the stewards to jump in on every single thing that happens on the track.
Yeah, I agree. Also, that one spot grid penalty that Max got seemed a bit odd, given that others were just handed a warning, and this led to the big dust-up between George and Max, with Max saying that he's never seen someone try to screw over another person as hard as George did in the stewards meeting. And he said that George is fake. He's one way on camera and another way off camera, and he's basically, I have no use for somebody like that. Having said that, I could kind of see that. George probably is the head of the GPDA. He's probably feeling his oats. He's in the steward meeting. He's probably a little nervous about the whole thing, wanting to make sure everybody knew it was Max's fault. Alonso said, "Oh well, if that's the case, then I'll just rush up on the guy in front of me and claim that I was balked." So Alonso gets it, Max gets it. I will say George is in a bit of a mood this weekend. Did you notice that after the sprint?
Yeah.
He was complaining that fans would be really disappointed on McLaren orchestrating the results of the sprint too. He kind of made a big issue out of that in the press. Was kind of vocal about that as well. So he seemed to kind of walk into this. Maybe he's a little chuffed. He just won Vegas, but he walked into this a bit of a mood.
Yeah, I think he's flexing his muscles a wee bit.
Yeah, I do too.
We've seen him before in the car. He makes demands on the people, on the drivers. And it's about George. That's something you always admire, right? It's George is trying to. He's using every angle he can to get the best result he can.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always make you a nice person.
No.
Right? No. Even all the best drivers we know in history
all of them
weren't always nice people to get what they want.
Yeah.
And it's just a kind of it's maybe a negative slide for a person, but it's part of the makeup of what drives them to be world champions.
Yeah, it really is. And in defense of George, to your point, Paul, he's not going to the steward meeting to make it easy for Max to get off the hook.
No.
He wants Max penalized. He wants him behind him. He wants on the front row. He wants, it's all about George, as it should be.
Yeah.
So I also posted a comment, thought it was interesting. I posted a comment about the world being completely outraged when Schumacher orchestrated Ferrari their finish in Austria all those years ago with Rubens and let him over at the last lap at the line. Yeah. And how the whole world was just outraged. My gosh, you remember that blowback they got and all that? And I posted that, and everybody, and I was met with several explanations about the context and how it was completely different in that circumstance, but this time completely justified. Back then, the outrage was totally justified because it was Schumacher, it was early in the season, all that kind of stuff, and how this time it was completely fine, no big deal. A team, in my mind, look, I get it, I get the context, I understand it, but bottom line again, a team either orchestrates an outcome or they don't. Yeah. Irrespective of the context, it doesn't matter. So I'm not saying I was unhappy with McLaren's decision. I totally get it. I totally understand. But stating that a point that if Mercedes, Ferrari, or Red Bull do it in the future, don't be upset. Don't get all mad about it.
It's a shame, but it's a business. It's a business to make money, and when you're dealing with a lot of things McLaren did wrong with their driver manipulation, should we say, right? And they've got a great asset in Piastri, and they're trying to make amends, I would say. Yeah. It's. I'm sure Piastri isn't punching the air, wasn't punching the air after getting that victory, but it's about resetting what's right, and that enables them to build that driver pairing with their team for more success, winning championship in constructors, hopefully for them, but then more out fighting for a drivers' championship next year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I wasn't upset about it. I just thought it was interesting. The juxtaposition of the two situations, the global outrage at Ferrari and Schumacher versus, oh, that's awesome, you let Oscar win, that's great, and nobody seemed bothered by it. But anyway, no big deal. Just going forward, don't be bothered if you're not a fan of Ferrari or Red Bull or Mercedes and they do it. You shouldn't be bothered by it. Let's jump into the teams. Red Bull, Sergio Perez.
Do you like my bass? You like it?
Sergio, a DNF. Max Verstappen took the win. Max got the jump on George at the start, made the pass for the lead, never really looked back. And to be fair, Lando had a very nice move at the beginning too on Max, and I thought he was going to take the lead over Max, but he backed out of it when he got on the outside. Perhaps that's a bit of a learned behavior from Lando. So while many don't like that Max has sharp elbows, maybe that sent a message. I don't know. Although I'd like to believe that Lando backed out of it because he's a smart racer. He knows
Right.
what's at stake here.
He knows, yeah.
He knows that Max wasn't his battle. It's finishing ahead of the Ferraris. He knows that. That's what's at stake. And Max really had nothing to lose. So he thought, well, Max, he couldn't care less if he, touches me or not. So I think he wisely backed off to consolidate McLaren's points lead over Ferrari. I think that's what he was focused on. Everybody said, oh, see, everybody's afraid of Max. I don't think necessarily that was the case.
No, they just know Max.
Yeah, they know Max. Yeah. And yes, he's got sharp elbows, and wisely, Lando's a super smart driver. He knows there's more at risk for McLaren, so he backed out.
Absolutely.
But it was a great race, and again, Paul, they reversed that fortune from the sprint to the race. An amazing job by Red Bull, the team.
Yeah, great turnaround for them. It's it's always difficult when they lock in, or they used to lock in during the sprint weekend so early. It really makes it backwards. I mean, that's what you get. That's what you want to do when you're a team. You want to you work on the car. You want to use flex all your engineering muscles to try and get the car as fast and for the race. And that's exactly what Red Bull did. Very impressive to turn a car around like that. And obviously Max is a factor unto himself. And so great turnaround by them. Great drive by Max. Very determined. He's got nothing to lose, but he loves to win. Yeah, he does. So, and that's all he cares about. And so, they can take a stab in the dark. I think they've kind of given up on the fact that they're not going to win the manufacturers championship. So they, that maybe they took a bit more chance than maybe some of the other teams who really have something to gain, and it worked, which is great. Great for them.
Yeah, it was good. Sergio had another Sergio weekend, retired with a DNF. He was running up in P5 early on before he boxed. He's looking good, but he said he had a massive power over delivery in his car that caught him out, spun him at turn 12 as he got on throttle, and he had this big spike in overpower. Or over-delivery power, and spun him around. And then after that, once he got righted, he had a loss of power, and it was a DNF from that part. So a bad weekend for Sergio.
Yeah, that was difficult to see, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it could easily be an overpower situation, overboost, whatever it was. It did sound a little weird.
It did.
And obviously, he couldn't get going again, burnt the clutch out, or did something. But on that same restart, Max was having a lot of problems with the rear of the car. Also, if you remember, that's what put him in the clutches of Lando in the first place. So maybe it had to do with something to do with how the team had gone about getting the car ready for that restart, temperature, whatever. But both Red Bulls obviously had a problem with the rear end, getting it pushed down into the ground, and it bit Sergio again. And I'm still bemused. I still don't understand why he's even still in the car, but it is what it is. They're going to ride out the season, looks like. Maybe, as you say, it's some contractual thing. But if I was them, I'd try and see one of their new guys. What can they do? I don't know.
Yeah,
who
I
they put in, because
I think it's a foregone conclusion that he won't be there. I think that's
I think it's got more to do with that. VCARB don't want to shake the driver lineup again because they're in the hunt for points. So it's gone more. Otherwise, I think if they were where they weren't going to win or lose anything, I think they would move one of their drivers up. But right now, they need both those drivers who are in tune with that car to score as many points as they can.
Yeah, they're fighting for sixth.
Yeah,
which is, from where they are in eighth, if they could move up to, that's like $30 million.
Yeah.
It's massive for a team like that. So, all right. Let's talk about Ferrari.
Ricky, these are not new enters. Which enter is this?
These are new enters, Ricky. Hello.
Hello.
Ferrari, yes. Charles
Where's
Leclerc.
my stapler?
But I was told it'd be no salt, senor. So Charles Leclerc, P2, Carlos Sainz, P6. Charles jumped Oscar at the start, couldn't hang on as Piastri got back around him, but the safety car meant he could box and get past Oscar back in to P4, then inherited P3 when Lando got his penalty. So he ended up inherited P2 when he got back up there. It's just another one of those lessons, Paul, and never giving up. And although, Charles said that the track didn't really suit their car, So to come home with P2 was more than they expected. But it is, attrition happens, these things happen, penalties happen. That it's just all about staying there, being present, and taking advantage of those opportunities when they come up. George has had that a couple times this year too for a podium. So, it was a good result from Charles. I don't know. I mean, I'm not suggesting it wasn't on merit for Ferrari. It was. They're fast, no doubt, but he didn't feel like it was a P2 performance. So being there was important, and getting back around Oscar was critical to have that P2 performance.
Yeah, they should be very happy with the point score they got. Obviously, if Sainz hadn't had his puncture, it would have been really good for them. And it's a long shot to beat McLaren, but this doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt at all. So they did luck out. But as you say, you make your own luck sometimes, and if you give up, you take it. If you just accept what's given to you and just maybe not push as hard, opportunities can escape you, and that's exactly what Charles did and executed it well.
Yeah, he did. Carlos, tougher race for him. He got that puncture from the debris from Albon's mirror. This left him drifted backwards. He did recover, though. Again, like you said, he recovered all the way to 6. Had he not had that, there's a good chance he'd be fighting for a podium at that point. Great recovery drive from him, finishing ahead of Lando. And that was key. So you had Charles ahead of Oscar, you had Carlos ahead of Lando, key to really narrowing that points gap, which we head into Abu Dhabi this weekend with it all to play for the Constructors' Championship.
Right, yeah. And you don't know what's going to happen, right?
You don't. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. Is McLaren, is Abu Dhabi favor their chassis, a favor Ferrari? It's all up in the air and what can happen. I will say, regardless of how it pans out, these are two teams, very storied, legendary teams that are long overdue for a Constructors' Championship, both of them. What was it for Ferrari, 2007, in the late 90s for McLaren? So no matter how it turns out.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah, it'd be great to see. I hope I have my number right on McLaren.
Late 90s for McLaren?
Or early 2000s. I can't remember. But you'd think I'd do the research. I didn't.
If you don't know it, just make it up.
Yeah. Well, it'd be bad since 1999, 1998. Yeah. So anyway, a long time. Let me put it that way for both of them. So it'd be a good result for either. Speaking of McLaren, you had Lando Norris. I know he's thinking.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, you had Lando down in P10, Oscar Piastri in P3. A tough day for the team, and they would have liked to run a lot better here. They didn't. He had Lando running in P2, only get called out by Max for not slowing under the yellows on the main straight with Albon's mirror on track. It was a total heads-up move from Max. And one I'm absolutely convinced that Lando would have done it had the roles been reversed. I guarantee you Lando would have brought it up too. And it's a testament to both these drivers. They have such capacity to not only run the race, but to understand the race around them and to notice things like that. Everybody's, Max calling him out. What a chump move. It's a brilliant move, and I guarantee you Lando would have done the same thing.
And I wonder if the stewards would have done anything if the team and Max hadn't noticed it and the team hadn't keep pushing the point. I mean, they might have wanted to brush that one under the carpet, but once it's out there in the open, it's hard for them to hide. Maybe that's why they overreacted with the penalty. I have no idea, but definitely just like Russell in the stewards room with Max was doing the same thing to Norris on the track, right?
Yeah.
Do everything and think of anything they can to give themselves advantage to make them successful.
Exactly. And then he got that harsh penalty, dropped him down to P15, charged his way back up to P10 on fresh tires, spoiled Sauber's dual points finish. That was unfortunate, but made it back for a point and got the fast lap point too. So that was good. Let's see. Oscar really had a decent race going, but they boxed him just before the safety car came out for Albon's mirror, and this dropped him behind Leclerc. But he made the most of it, came home in P3. Despite the bad luck, I think it is going to be a fun battle next weekend between them and Ferrari. Oscar, P3, podium finish. Safety car caught him out, not his fault. I think he had a good race.
Yep. Yeah. No, he did. He did. He was just a little off of Norris,
Yeah.
but not a lot off,
Not a
right? It's a difficult track. If you're not feeling completely comfortable with your car and have a lot of confidence in it, it can take just that little bit of edge off, and maybe that's what Piastri was
Yeah.
dealing with. But yeah, obviously, once again, keep pushing, and success will come your way.
Yep. Mercedes.
One thing
yeah.
about Norris, though.
What?
So, and I don't remember this. When he came in for his 10-second stop and hold, he put new tires on, because normally if you get a penalty, you can't do work to the car. You just have to serve the penalty and go. But I don't remember. Because you were saying, because obviously he got the fastest lap, which is true. And I don't know if it was just his true pace. Even I'm not sure he got new tires, but I could be wrong.
I don't. Matter of fact, I think in my mind when that was happening, it was a stop and go, and you can't work on the car,
Right?
Because it's a penalty only. So in my mind, I didn't even watch because in my mind, I'm thinking you can't change tires during that.
Right. I don't think so.
If he had just a 10-second penalty, they can wait 10 seconds and
Right.
then work on the car. But I think a stop and go is like you said, you go in, you stop 10 seconds and go out. If you want to change tires,
right.
you got to come back in. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton P12, George Russell P4. Punchy weekend for George. Had the sprint podium, inherited pole position, but it unraveled a bit when Max overtook him at the start, followed by Lando, so he dropped down. The team boxed him early, and a normal stop turned into a 7-second stop with a slow right rear, which dropped him way down in the order, leaving a heck of a lot of work to do. He did manage to fight his way all the way back up. And basically they came in, he put on hards. He wasn't happy with that. And that second stop, he said, what are you doing putting me on hards? I mean, he was kind of like, what? He wanted the mediums, and Toto later after the race admitted, the mediums would have been better. I think Sky said that he didn't have a fresh new set of mediums. He had a scrub set. So maybe that was the thinking.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed a logical thing to do, and he was very, very angry over that thought. I'm sure he was expecting when they told him to box for tires that he was going to get the mediums, and so that was kind of a shocker. And obviously we saw from some other teams putting on the softer rubber was a very good move.
The mediums
in that situation. Sure. As it got colder and colder, the softer tire really came to quite an advantage, I think.
It did. And then he got towards the end, he got a penalty for dropping too far behind the safety cars. So insult to injury didn't affect his finish position. Yeah. Lewis had a bit of a pity party weekend this weekend, telling the press, "I'm not fast anymore."
And Ferrari are like, "Hey, what? What did he say?"
Wait a minute.
Carlos.
Yeah, right.
I didn't mean it.
Right. Yeah, you're great. So this is just Lewis being Lewis. He's been, he kind of goes out, he drums up some self-deprecation, and the whole world says, "No, Lewis, you're the GOAT. No, you're awesome." But it's just kind of Lewis being Lewis. Basically not happy with the car. He just wants the season over.
He does.
I mean, he's certainly down in the mouth this weekend about the entire weekend. To be fair, I mean, he had a good reason to be fair to Lewis. Tough qualifying for both sprint and the race, and then he had the false start. That's on him. He took that on himself during the Grand Prix, and then while, that was his own doing, the race really conspired against him. He had that puncture, not his fault. That was race control because Albon's mirror, had set up shop out on the front straight. That it moved him down the order. Had a lot of work to do. Then he got the other penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Basically a weekend to forget. It was a little odd. Some people poking at him saying, 7-time champion wanted to go in and retire. He was like, "No, I'm just going to turn it off in the pit lane." They go, "Okay, well, if you want a 5-second penalty in the next race, go ahead and turn it off. Otherwise, you're going to serve the penalty, and then we'll come back in."
But they didn't, did they? He kept going.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was weird. He was saying, "I want to retire the car." Then they told him he was going to retire the car. And then the car didn't get retired at all.
They eventually brought him around, and then he kept going. But it was, not a good weekend. And, in my mind, man, he is so out of there, He's short timing. This is the lame duck session, and it's hard to get harsh on Lewis. He's going to Ferrari. However, I got to be thinking, if I'm Ferrari, about 80% of all of this I would understand as being a short timer, right?
Yeah.
There is 20% of concern why George is beating him, in both qualifying and the race.
Yeah.
And the other part of that concern would be, are these new ground effects sort of out of reach for him? What's going on? Because that's what.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I think it's got a lot to do with the open door mindset. The door's open. I'm just about to leave. I've stopped packing up my pencils.
Yeah.
You're not really focusing, but also,
Right.
the team are probably being very tight with anything on his car, and talk to him about anything, debriefs, etc. And that's it's gonna put you on the back foot, quite honestly. And they don't have a lot to lose now. The Constructors' Championship, they're pretty much going to be where they're going to be. They're not that worried about the Drivers' Championship, so they've got no real reason to do anything with Lewis at this point. It's a shame because obviously the history is there.
Yep.
But and it's all about getting George ready for next season, really.
Well, I mean, Paul, I don't know. You're just spitballing. One could argue, what does it look like when a team puts most of its focus behind one driver? This might be what it looks like.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's a shocker, right, for him being in that team for so long, used to how people treat him, look at him,
strategies.
Strategy, the exposure he gets to what's going on technically, it's all gone, and rightfully so. It shouldn't be, but it is a bit of a kick in the teeth. Like, just doesn't feel good anymore, right?
Yeah, and one side you say, well, that's unfair, and the other side, well, what did you expect? You're quitting a year early on Toto, and it took him completely off guard, and you're going to Ferrari. I mean, what were you expecting? That they'd still really lead with you and give you all the best strategies and the new parts and divulge all the, no. I mean, George is their guy, and they're going to, put most of their focus behind that. They don't want Lewis slow. They're not doing anything to purposely hobble him, but, they're certainly not going to be pulling back the curtain and showing him everything.
Nope.
Let's see. Alpine. Great story here. Pierre Gasly and P5, Esteban Ocon, a DNF. Pierre had a great race to P5. Huge points haul to lift the team back, Paul, into 6th in the championship. If they can hold on to it, that race they had in Brazil will be a $50 million race that launched them back up into 6th place, and that's huge. And, fair play. But, I say that there was some attrition, but fair play to Pierre. I mean, sure, he boxed under the safety car, and there was attrition, but he held off Carlos Sainz for P5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some merit.
Carlos was all over him like a cheap
Yes,
suit.
he was.
Sure.
So there's some merit to his run, Paul. It wasn't all just total attrition, and he got the luck of the safety car. I mean, he did a great job holding Carlos off, and Carlos is pretty handy behind the wheel.
Yes, he's known to be, No, Gassie's done a great job. I mean, but he's a really good driver, but obviously the team has actually turned that car around too. So hats off to them as well.
We should say chapeau too.
Yeah, chapeau.
Yes.
Maybe Flavio's sitting there, throwing some setup sheets out there on the wall.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on there, but it's pretty funny that Flavio's coming in there. And great for them. They were a bit of a joke at the start of the season, but it Brazil wasn't a one-trick pony, it seems. It seems they've found something. They've got some performance in that vehicle, and Pierre's getting it done. Ocon, not so much.
Yeah, Ocon. Well, he's victim of Hulkenberg's, clash with him and Colapinto, and that ended Franco and Esteban's race. It was Esteban's last race this year.
Yeah,
it's over. He's done.
It's over.
Gone out of Alpine. And so this weekend you're going to see Jack Doohan.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's obviously Ocon hasn't been as competitive as Gasly. Not something you'd really want to do if you're really that tight in the points. But I feel like whatever's going on in that team is got very sour recently, and I don't think the team trusts Ocon to be pushing, because basically right now Ocon's goal at Alpine would be to beat the Haas's, who is where he's going. And so if he doesn't beat the Haas's, I'm not saying Ocon's throwing the race or whatever, but I'm also not saying he's not.
Yeah.
he goes to Haas, they get an extra $20 million for their championship. That's going to help him for his season next year, right? The more money. So
Yep.
I think, Doohan's, it's going to be tough for him to
Right.
get going, but I feel they think the Ocon negatives overruled, Doohan coming in, doing his race debut when there's so much on the line for the team.
Yeah, you make some great points, Paul. There's certainly, why would they do that? You're risking. You need two drivers that are familiar with the car to maximize your points. Obviously, the team feels confident that they can secure and hold sixth with Pierre Gasly, the way he's driving and the current performance, as long as they can give him a car that's competitive to finish in the points up there ahead of the Haas's. So, and maybe they're just avoiding any possibility of accusations, hints, and innuendos, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to know. I'm not like you. I'm not suggesting that Esteban would throw the race and try to help Haas, the team he's going to, but they want to avoid any improprieties and any perceived improprieties, and maybe this is the best way to do it if you feel, and they have every right to feel confident that Pierre will deliver. Because he has been. He's been doing a great job. And so, it gives Jack Doohan a little bit of a rolling start for next year. So,
hopefully Doohan can back up Gasly and get something too. But the focus definitely going to be on Gasly, maximum the points against everybody else.
Yeah, so what to watch for this weekend? Watch Pierre Gasly against the RBs and the Haas's. That's going to be a great battle, I hope, in midfield. So, let's see, Aston Martin, Lance Stroll. Woo, Lance. Yes. Lance punted Albon in the opening lap, got a penalty for it, served it, and then retired the car. So it's enough said about Lance.
Yeah.
Alonso, though, had a much better day. Initially, though, he looked like a sitting duck out there, Paul. Everybody was passing by him, and he said that there was some issues with the car early on down the straight, but a very crafty dual stop late in the race, got him on hards, box immediately, got him back on the softs after the safety car, let him get out. He fought his
on the
way.
mediums.
Or on the mediums, I'm sorry, softer tires, mediums. Got back out, fought his way, taking advantage of the attrition ahead of him, secured seventh. Again, being there to take advantage of a situation, Alonso is always there.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, I don't know if he was struggling with a technical issue and they fixed it. I'm not sure if it was just a perception thing, but obviously, it wasn't doing great at the beginning there. He lost a few places due to a mistake as well as just being able to be freight trained. But the move to put the mediums on, probably felt like you just had a fresh shower when you jump in the car and you got those mediums, and everyone else is on the hard, struggling to try and get temperature in them, trying to get performance out of them. And he was able to carve his way up there. It was fun to see, because the team haven't had that much to smile about in recent races. So this was a good turnaround for him and the Aston Martin team.
Talk about a turnaround. Big news. Yes, sir. Kick Sauber scored their first point of the year. How about that? What a great result for them.
Yeah.
Huge race for Sauber. Zhou Guanyu scores the team's first points of the season, finishes up in P8, thanks to attrition, of course. But, there's some merit. I thought he drove well. Valtteri Bottas drove really well, finished just out of the points. He was running in P10 in the closing laps, but Lando Norris on fresher tires hunted him down and took 10th away from him. But still, to be fair, there was a lot of attrition, agreed, but there was an element of merit to this as Zhou really drove a great race. He had good tire management. It's just great news. Valtteri got caught out by the safety car, and then got overhauled by Lando. And who knows if he had floor damage from the mirror. He did say he got floor damage when when Lawson hit him early in the race. But a fantastic race for Zhou. And great points for the team who desperately needed it, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to change their payout, but it's something, at least they got points because they were the team that couldn't do anything. And most of the time in these reviews, we're going, Sauber, anything?
Nothing.
No? Okay, let's move on. So it was more competitive here. I guess it's a track that suits the car for whatever reason.
Right.
And once again, you keep persevering. But I think Zhou was in the mix anyway.
He was.
If they weren't in the mix, then they still wouldn't have been in the points. So it did.
Yeah.
They were competitive enough to take advantage of that attrition, or the cars bumping into each other, etc. But at least the car was lively and in the hunt.
Yeah, yeah.
So good, yeah.
Yeah, it was. Let's see. Haas, Nico Hulkenberg, DNF, Kevin Magnussen, P9. Nico had a ragged race, punting Ocon and Colapinto at the start, getting a puncture. Then he boxed. Then he beached it on the restart on mediums after the stop. And that's pretty harsh, given he's done a lot of the keeping the team in the hunt for the points.
Right, point scoring,
he's done a lot for it, right, to keep them in P6. So very tough weekend for him.
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, it was a big error at the end there, but obviously it caught Perez out, caught Hulkenberg out too. He was just, I mean, watch the in-car, and he just had a great run. The tire just wasn't ready for what he was asking it to do. And just kind of ran him wide and sent him into a spin. It's a judgment call, right? I mean, it's not. No one did it to him, but he definitely threw that one away.
Yeah, he did. This left Kevin doing a heck of a lot of heavy lifting. He did manage to take advantage of the attrition, coming, all the attrition on track. Came home P9. He boxed before the safety car that led Alonso and Joe ahead of him, but then held on to P9, and I think had a pretty tight race, all things given.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, great to see Kevin score points so late in the season, which is probably his last season, I'm sure. So nice one, Kev.
Yeah. Had a very good pass on Yuki. That was a great battle going on there. Yeah. Speaking of Yuki, RB, Liam Lawson P14, Yuki Tsunoda P13. Yuki had a great start getting into the top 10. Said that he started to really struggle for pace at that point. Lost positions, dropped down to P13. It did seem a little odd. Several people passed him, kind of like the Alonso. There were several people in succession just went by. Not sure if that was like a graining issue, a degradation issue, tire wear. I'm not quite sure where that performance came and why so many people got by him at that point. But he eventually then was able to hang on to P13 just outside of the points. So, I mean, it wasn't horrible, but the team is fighting for 6 against Haas and Alpine. So not a great weekend for him.
No, it was not a great weekend. He was like the poster child for the outside pass at turn 1, really, wasn't it? It was like everyone had a go. They were just I don't know. He was trying to hold people off. I don't know if he just wasn't getting the grip coming out of the turn, or the car technically was a bit vulnerable at the top end speed. But definitely that outside pass at turn 1, he was just the jam car, and everyone got to, as I said, had a go at it, which. I'm not sure what he was saying in the cockpit, but I'm sure there was a few F-bombs going about this week as well.
Right? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Definitely wasn't destroying his teammate either, though. So
no, not
as his deference to do, apparently.
Yes, and I will say that Liam had a ragged race too. If I'm
honest. He did.
I don't. Here's some context for you. He's brand new to F1. He walked in and I think maybe he's reminding us of that in the last couple of races. He's down in P14, ragged race, came together with Bottas. He's had some kerfuffles with Perez, getting a little hot under the collar on the radio. So reminding us that, once again, he is a rookie. He's brand new at this. So tough race for RB, although, at the end of the day, they did put the softs on. When he boxed under the second safety car, boy, those softs didn't last long.
No, it was the mediums were definitely the way to go. When they put the softs on, and I was counting how many laps they got left, I'm like, oof, you're really rolling the dice here. I don't know what they were. It could have worked. Maybe it was worth a go, but I wasn't very hopeful they were going to last that many laps.
Yeah, and they sure didn't. They left him down to P14. They wore out pretty quick. Let's see, and then down to finally Williams. You got Alex Albon in P15 without a mirror. You got Franco Colapinto out first lap DNF. So you talk about a threadbare weekend for Williams with Franco out at turn 1. Alex getting punted by Stroll, then lost his mirror, then had that clash with Magnussen that earned him a 10-second penalty for causing a collision. I don't know, man. I think James may be feeling it over there in the team.
Yeah.
The team seems to be going off the boil here. They had kind of a resurgence there, and then they're going off the boil in the last few races.
Well, I think their drivers are more at fault for that, the incidents that have happened, and obviously with the team without a lot of inventory on the new parts, they're basically going backwards in their car development, and then they're kind of pushing, trying to go over the limit of what that car's capable of to try and keep up. Just isn't working. Yeah,
James has got his hand full there. He's got a tiger by the tail. Let's see what he can do in the off season. And he keeps saying, "Well, I didn't really about 2025 or 2026. It's about the new regulations. So we may limp through 2025. I don't know. Hopefully not.
I'm sure Carlos Sainz isn't happy about that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not. He'll be like,
No, it cannot be, Ricky.
Cannot be, Ricky. Let's do some awards. First award is always move of the race.
Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango.
Yes. All right, Paul. What'd you have move of the race?
I've got a couple. I got that Alonso Aston move with the tires going to mediums. That really changed the outcome of their race, right?
They went from pretty much no points to P7 in the points.
Yeah, which is significant, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think they're under any threat, but they do need some good news, and that brought it to them.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good one. I went with Kevin, his pass on Yuki. I thought that was a great battle between the two of them. And Kevin just hung out there and put the move on him and pulled him up into P9 for points for Haas, which they desperately need to keep within touch point of Alpine going into the last race. You had Kevin,
every point counts.
Nico's out, right? So Nico's out of the race. Haas desperate needs those points to stay within touching distance of Alpine going to the last race, and so Kevin did it as a great pass.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next award is Donkey of the Race.
We'll do it live.
Oh yes, Donkey of the Race. Well, who'd you have? We were like this on this.
We are like this. It's got to be the race stewards, the race director, and I'm not going to blame it just on the director. It's a tough job. It really is, and I just think there's something going on there that makes doing that job well very, very difficult, and being thrown in the mix and then being spread thin. It's just a lineup for catastrophe, which is kind of what we got, really.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, this is on MBS. This is your organization.
Yeah,
it's the FI. It's on you, dude.
Yeah.
You can.
And you can't run away and keep saying, "Well, it's no one else's business. It's everyone's business."
It's everyone's.
It's a business.
Yeah. He said, "Well, the drivers want to know what we're doing. It's none of their business." No, it's everyone's business. You're the governing body. That's the role of the governing body.
Yeah.
And when you're making decisions like this, it becomes everybody's problem. Go ask Stefano if you think it's his business. It's very much. It's their asset.
Yeah.
So
they're spending the money. You're just accepting the money. Right?
Yeah, and like you, I'm not blaming Rui. He's put in a very unfair position on this. So yeah, tough deal. Finally, we got drive of the race.
Yesterday, Lewis. You like my bass? You like it?
No. All right, drive of the race. Who'd you got?
Sorry, Sergio, you're not winning this one. I'm going to give it to Joe. I mean, we may not be able to give many awards in the future. I don't think it's going to be around it, but one more race. So great, get the car on the points. How many races did we have? 23 races? 20? I can't remember now. 100? I don't know, but it's been a long drought, and for them to come up and him be the boy to do it, then good for him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had Joe too. Just to mix it up, I'll go with Pierre. I think Pierre had a great race all the way up into fifth place. Great.
Also
race
as important. Yeah.
Very important for Alpine. Critical for them. And a great job by Pierre. Let's do some mailbag before
You've got mail.
Did you see what Mike Smith asked you? Mike has a question for you, Paul.
Okay.
He says, during the Las Vegas review, Paul speculated that Mercedes was not hampered by porpoising because Vegas is a low downforce track. I know absolutely zilch about aerodynamics, but I thought the faster a ground effects car goes, the more downforce generated by the air moving beneath the car. To continue the thought, the more downforce generated, the closer the car is to the track, and porpoising becomes more of a problem. Are you saying wing adjustments are more for setting up the floor of the car to make more or less downforce, and less for producing downforce on their own? Any insight you can sprinkle would be greatly appreciated. Always great podcast. Keep up the great work, Paul.
Yes. So
what the heck are you saying?
What
Paul?
the heck was I saying? And what I'm trying to say is that when you're running less downforce, the release of the downforce isn't as acute, right? It's kind of like trying to set. It's more like setting the car up a compromise for turning with wind. Maybe I'm mumbling on here, but basically because the car wasn't absolutely pushed to the max, pushing down the ground. That once that releases, it releases big, and then the porpoising is quite extreme. When you're not relying on the downforce, or you're not using as much of that percentage of potential downforce, then the ebb and flow or the push and release isn't as acute, and so not as damning, I suppose, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Okay.
It does. I mean, don't ask me to draw a picture of it, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, everything he said is true. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that the percentage of downforce is less, so therefore the effect is not as extreme when it breaks, releases the downforce.
Which then you start getting to downforce,
Right.
downforce, release, downforce, downforce, then you
Right,
start
and
getting
this-
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, excellent.
Yes.
Well, Paul, we don't have much time to sit around and pick our nose. We've got a race
No.
this weekend in Abu Dhabi, the final race. I mean, we know who the drivers' championship is, but we do not know who the constructors' champion is. So look for that at the very sharp end between Ferrari and McLaren. A long shot, but if Ferrari has a miserable weekend, Red Bull could nip P2, and the constructors, it's a long shot. But anyway, look for that. And then you've got a massive battle going for 6th, 7th, 8th. The delta between that could be upwards of $30 million. And
That's going to be exciting. Hopefully they
teams
focus on that a little bit, because that is going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be really good. But anyway, let us know what you thought about the Qatar Grand Prix. You can do so by going to theparkformay.com. Share your opinion. Just do it with decorum and civility. As always, a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. We could not and would not do this podcast without you. And until next weekend, when we come back to talk about the final race of the 2024 season, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game